following program is classified G. It's suitable for all ages.
Tonight, COVID-19 and inflation hit Sri Lanka is now further burdened by a power crisis, and the adequate supply of power in the coming few months seems uncertain. Although the power cuts that were experienced during the past few weeks have stopped for the time being, even the power sector authorities do not know how long this uninterrupted supply will last, because the power sector is facing a fuel shortage. Good evening, I'm Suzanne Shanali. This is Derana and The Morning Investigates. The situation got worse this week as the state-run fuel importer and distributor, the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation or the CPC, refused to supply fuel to the Ceylon Electricity Board or the CEB unless adequate notice is given and payments are made in US dollars due to the difficulties pertaining to the importation of fuel due to the foreign reserves crisis. The Lanka Indian Oil Company or the LIOC too has refused the CEB's request for fuel. We investigate. In the context, there is now a question about the future of the power sector and of electricity consumers. According to the energy sector expert and Resource Management Associates Managing Director Dr. Thilak Siyambalapitiya, one of the main reasons for the prevailing power crisis is the inadequacy of the electricity generating capacity, as there is no capacity that could reliably meet the customer demand throughout the day.
We expect the demand this year to reach a peak of 2,900 megawatt, and this happens usually in the evening, and typically in the last few years it happens in the month of March because of the weather conditions. Now, to meet this 2,900 megawatt of customer demand, on paper there is 4,200 megawatt of power generating capacity. 2,900 to be met with 4,200. So you might ask, what's the problem? We have so much of excess capacity. But the problem is as follows. Out of the 4,200, dependable capacity, that is oil-fired generation and coal-fired generation, is only 2,200. So you got the numbers? 2,200 of oil and coal, which can be run on demand. Now, to serve the balance 900, surely we have a lot of hydropower plants, mini hydropower plants, solar generating capacity, and wind power capacity. But as you know very well, solar power is not available in the night. Wind power is very low in the months of January, February, March, and April. Hydropower is very low in the same months. We know very well. It's not a new discovery. So therefore, to satisfy the balance 700 megawatt, the available hydropower capacity and other capacities are really inadequate.
He also noted that the power crisis is not just a matter of inadequate foreign reserves, adding that managing the supply and demand should also receive attention.
In summary, I would say even if we did not have a crisis in the oil and coal supply, we would still have blackouts this year. What I say is that let us leave aside the problem in getting oil and coal. If we had all the money, still Sri Lanka would have had blackouts this year. These blackouts were to come in 2019. We avoided the blackouts because there was exceptional rain in 2019 in the months of May, and there was a reduction in demand because of the April bump in 2019, and from 2020 the demand has been depressed because of the COVID, and now the demand is catching up as expected. There's no surprises here.
Meanwhile, speaking of the reasons for the power crisis, the CEB Senior Engineers Association spokesman Nandika Patirage said that the prevailing crisis is caused by many reasons which can be categorized as long-term and short-term reasons.
එතකොට long term හේතුව තමයි ඇත්තටම මේ low cost ලොකු plant හදපු නැති එක. 2014 ඉඳලා අපි power plants හැදුවේ නැහැ. අපි කිව්වහම IT මේ CB එකේ නිලධාරීන් ඉංජිනේරු සහ අමාත්‍යාංශය සහ ආශ්‍රිත අනෙක් සියලුම දෙනා IT නිලධාරී මට්ටමේ එතකොට short term මේ අද දකින්න දේ අපිට පේන්න තියෙන දේ නම් දැන් වෙන්නේ මේ හිටපු ගමන් මේ විදුලි ඉල්ලුම වැඩි වුණා නෙමෙයි අපිට මේ නියගයක් වෙනවා දැන් වසංගතයට පස්සේ අපි මේ රට දැන් දුවන්න පටන් ගන්න තියෙනවා එතකොට ඒ දුවන්න පටන් ගන්න තියෙනකොට දැන් විදුලි ඉල්ලුම වැඩි වෙනවා විදුලි ඉල්ලුම වැඩි වෙනවා ඊට සමගාමීව නියගයක් වෙලා තියෙනවා එතකොට නියගය එනකොට අපිට ජල විදුලිය නැහැ එතකොට ජල විදුලිය නැති වුණාම අපිට දැන් අපි මම කියපු පළවෙනි කාරණේ first reason එක sizable plants අපිට අපි හැදුවේ නැහැ ඒ නිසා අපි දැන් ඉන්නේ මේ බොහොම මේ marginal level එකේ ඉන්නේ මේක මේ හදිසියකට plant එකක් නවත්ත ගන්න බෑ maintenance එකට නොරොච්චෝලේ plant එකේ schedule maintenance මම හිතන්නේ අවුරුදු දෙකකින් හරි තුනකින් හරි කරලා නැහැ මොකද මේ නවත්ත ගන්න බෙදියක් නැහැ මේ එක දිගට මේ හිරවීමත් එක්ක එතකොට තවත් නැවතුවොත් අපිට ආයේ මොකද්ද ඉතුරු වෙන්නේ power cuts.
Dr. Simbala Pitia also shared the same opinion about power plants operating to their maximum capacity.
Also, we should not forget that just like a car or a bus, the thermal power plants, oil burning power plants or the coal power plants also have to go on for maintenance. They run 24 hours, so you cannot run them 24 hours into 365 days without maintenance. Some of them are on scheduled maintenance, some of them are on emergency maintenance because they have been running for too long without undergoing the proper maintenance schedule. So it's a combination of events that has taken Sri Lanka to this crisis.
The CEB Employees Association President Noel Priyantha, however, pointed out flaws in decision implementation processes as reasons that have resulted in a power crisis.
Yeah, power crisis is a common issue in Sri Lanka. Main reasons we can describe, we haven't taken decisions on time. When you go back to 1980s, the planners requested coal power plant, but it took more than 10 years to implement power plants. So, similarly today also, we have a long-term generation expansion plan, but not a single power plant after 2014. The major power plants, that is Norochole, third unit, that has been commissioned. After that, we can't find any single power plant other than 100 megawatt Mana wind power plant.
He emphasized that even though Sri Lanka has plans, the execution is very poor, and that even though planners have done their job, implementers such as the government and other stakeholders do not support to execute these plans. Had we done that, we would have been able to meet the ever-increasing demand for electricity, he opined. In order to deal with the power crisis and to prevent the same in the future, Patrage suggested that both long-term and short-term needs should be identified. One of the short-term steps he suggested was purchasing power urgently, which he said was necessary although could be expensive.
අපි ලයිට් කපන්නේ මේ රට එහෙම තියාගෙන දුවනවා කියලා අපි හිතුවොත් අපිට ඊළඟ ඔප්ෂන් එක තමයි at any cost we are supplying electricity. For that we have to get emergency power. We have to purchase emergency power. ඒකට ටිකක් වියදම් අධිකයි. ඒක වෙනම ව්‍යාපාරයක්. 2002 ඉඳලා මේගොල්ලෝ පුරුදු වෙනවා මේ ඔකටත් යන්න. ඔකත් සංස්කෘතියක් වෙලා. It has come to a fashion in CEB and the ministry.
He said that Sri Lanka is facing this situation due to not taking long-term measures, buying time, opposing power plant projects and not handling tenders properly, and that the fuel crisis had led to power cuts. Also adding that the prevailing power crisis is a result of long-term actions and inaction, he stressed that long-term steps are the most crucial solutions. With regard to solutions, he said that Sri Lanka should give more attention to the available sources, including renewable energy resources, and that the involvement of the private sector should be obtained.
මෙගවට් 10ට අඩු ප්ලාන් ටෙන්ඩර් කරන්න නැතුව ෆීඩින් ටැරිෆ් එකට දෙන්න. කොට රජයට ඉන්වෙස්ට්මන්ට් එකක් නැතුව මේ ඉන්වෙස්ටර්ස්ලා ඉන්න ඕන තරම් ලෝකල් ඉන්වෙස්ටර්ස්ලා ඉන්න ඕනනම් ෆොරිනර්ස්ලා ඉන්නවා ෆොරිනර්ස්ලා නැත්නම් කමන්නේ ලෝකල් ඉන්වෙස්ටර්ස්ලා ඉන්නවා අපිට මෙගවට් 300ක් 400ක් 500ක් නිකම්ම ගහන්න පුළුවන්. ඊට පස්සේ අපිට ඕනනම් පුළුවන් ඒගොල්ලන්ට කන්ඩිෂන් එකක් දාලා අපි ඒගොල්ලන්ට බිල් ගෙවන්නේ මාස 5ක් විතර පරක්කු වෙලා. දැනටත් එහෙම තමයි ගෙවන්නේ. ඉතින් එතකොට බර්ඩන් එක තවත් අඩුයි. අනිත් එක ඒගොල්ලන්ට බිල් ගෙවන්නේ අපි රුපියල් වලින්.
According to Dr. Siambalapitiya, however, the authority should focus on a long-term decision first and then make medium-term and short-term decisions. He explained the nature of the decisions Sri Lanka must take.
Short-term solutions are brought in at an enormous cost, forgetting the long-term requirements. So in the longer term, Sri Lanka has to go in for more thermal power generation, which can be depended on. So this thermal power generation, as many developing countries do, will have to be on the high end of the cost. It will be liquid natural gas. In the lower end of the cost, it will be coal-fired generation. You know very well, Sri Lanka was to have a coal-fired power plant in Sampur in Trincomalee, which was cancelled in 2015. Sampur was to be operational this year, fully operational this year, and we don't have that power plant. There was a liquid natural gas power plant that was scheduled to come into operation in 2017. We are still debating and court cases on getting the liquid natural gas. So those long-term decisions have to be made first. Then we know by which year the projects will be operational, and then to meet the electricity demand until then.
After the industry professionals expressed their opinion regarding the ongoing power crisis, we also discussed economically viable and practical power generating techniques Sri Lanka can pay attention to in order to overcome the prevailing situation. Also, we discussed the government's stance regarding this matter. After the break, we investigate further. Welcome back. The world uses various forms of technologies to generate power, and generating power is one of the most important aspects of development of any country. Although Sri Lanka has also looked into various new power generating methods apart from the mainstream methods that are being used, these new methods have barely been able to fulfill Sri Lanka's electricity demand. What are the steps Sri Lanka can take to identify and employ the best power generating methods to overcome the power crisis? And what is the government's stance regarding the power crisis and the future of the power sector? Furthermore, with regard to interim solutions Sri Lanka can look into until large-scale power plants are built, Dr. Siambalapitiya said that looking into renewable energy sources could be a solution. He noted, however, that renewable energy sources should support, not replace, the existing system.
This is a wrong notion that many people think that having solar panels on the rooftop, we can avoid building a big power plant. No, you cannot, because solar panels cannot give you electricity at the time you want. That is a problem we have at the moment. We have to, first of all, remember that all countries depend on proven technology. So at this moment, the proven technology, renewable, for electricity generation, obviously, hydropower, which we have done to almost the maximum possible extent. Wind power is proven. Electricity from solar power is also proven. But if you ask me, how about wave power? How about ocean thermal energy? I have to say, sorry, they are still under research. Electricity generation from biomass and agricultural waste is proven, but the biomass we have and the agricultural waste we have is limited.
He opined that in this context, out of the group of renewable energy sources Sri Lanka has, what the country can develop fastest is wind power and solar power. He added, however, that there are many wind and solar projects that are stagnating without being implemented owing to various reasons: institutional delays, politicians and various other parties blocking projects, inability to getting lands, expenses and issues in the procurement process.
Projects are stagnating in various stages. So we need to accelerate wind and solar projects that are stagnating for a long time owing to various reasons, not only one reason, not because of one person. Also accelerate rooftop solar.
He noted the importance of managing costs of power generation and income made through the supply of power.
There's a very specific issue that we have to address in this process. The cost of electricity production and delivery, as approved by the Public Utilities Commission last year, was 22 rupees per kilowatt hour per unit of electricity. 22 rupees. Sri Lanka's national average selling price was 17 rupees. So a commodity that is proven or approved to cost at 22 rupees is being sold at 17 rupees. So such an institution cannot survive. CB is surviving because it is government owned. So how is it surviving? By not paying their suppliers. So renewable energy developers are not paid, Petroleum Corporation is not paid, debts owed to the government on account of loans taken for transmission, distribution is not being paid. So this thing cannot go on like this for the last 7 years. The price of electricity has been stagnant, but the cost has been going up from 15 rupees to 22 rupees. This year, it could be even 24 rupees. So therefore, sadly, the price of electricity has to be increased as well. Purchasing price of renewable energy, it needs to quickly move to the competitive process, not predefined prices, which are all subject to corruption. The pricing has to be determined through a competitive process. That will bring the prices of renewable energy down. The pool of renewable energy, that means wind, mini hydro, solar, and rooftop, averaged at 17 rupees a kilowatt hour last year. Production cost was 17. Although you hear in various magazines, news reports, etc., that renewable prices are going down, they don't go down in Sri Lanka because everybody wants a fixed price to be paid. That fixed price business has to be concluded as soon as possible so that we do justice to the technology as well as to the customers who purchase this electricity.
Priyantha also pointed out the importance and urgency of paying more attention to renewable energy sources, especially due to the foreign reserves crisis affecting fuel, which is essential for power generation at several power plants.
The 2019, the President of Sri Lanka very clearly mentioned about his vision about renewables. His target is 70% renewable energy by 2030. Yet, CEB and other stakeholders not yet take up positive decisions and effective decisions to implement those things. Already 2 years gone. Now only Ceylon Electricity Board decided to accept 70% renewable energy process and proposal. So, renewable energy is the solution. We must take accelerated program to implement renewable energy projects. So, then dollar issue will not be come in effect because for solar, wind and hydro, you don't need any dollar to import oil.
Power Minister Gamini Lokuge, however, has conveyed mixed opinions about the future of the power sector and the provision of power. Speaking about the spate of power cuts electricity consumers experience on many occasions, he said,
ජනතාවට ඕන දෙයක් ප්‍රකාශ කරන්න පුළුවන් අපි උත්සාහ කරේ විදුලි විසන්ධ කිරීමක් නැතුව යන්න. ඉල්ලුමට සරිලන ධාරිතාව නැත්තම් ඉංජිනේරු මහත්තුරුන්ට සිද්ධ වෙන එක පාලනය කරන්න. ඒ නිසා තමයි අවම ප්‍රමාණයක් ඒගොල්ලෝ විදුලිය කප්පාදු කරේ. අපි ඇත්ත වශයෙන්ම මාංශ වෙන්නේ කප්පාදුවක් නැතුව යන්න. මේ කවුරු හරි කඩා කප්පාල්කාරී කෙනෙක් අපේ ප්ලාන්ට් එක මොකක් හරි ප්‍රශ්නයක් ඇති වුණේ නැත්තම් යන්න.
He also criticized the CPC's stance with regard to the provision of fuel for the CEB and added that the CPC must act in accordance with the agreements the two institutions have entered into.
ඉල්ලීමක් කරන්න දෙයක් නැහැ. ඒක වාර්ෂික ඇණුමක්. ඒ වාර්ෂික ඇණුමට සපයන්න ඕනේ මේ තෙල් සංස්ථාව. එහෙම නැත්නම් මේ දවසෙන් දවස ඉල්ලන්නේ නැහැ. අවුරුද්ද ප්ලෑන් කරනකොට ඒගොල්ලෝ ප්ලෑන් කරන්න ඕනේ තෙල් සංස්ථාවට මෙච්චර ඕනේ කරනවා, බලාගාර වලට මෙච්චර ඕනේ කරනවා, පුද්ගලිකංශේ වාහන වලට මෙච්චර ඕනේ කියනවා. ඒ අනුව තමයි ඒගොල්ලෝ සලස්මන්ව ගේන්නේ. ඉතින් අපි බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන එක අනුව ගේනවා කියලා. තෙල් සංස්ථාව තමයි ලංකාවේ තෙල් බෙදා හැරීමේ ඒකාධිකාරය තියෙන්නේ. තෙල් ආනයනය කිරීමේ ඒකාධිකාරය තියෙන්නේ. ඒ නිසා විදුලි බල අමාත්‍යාංශයේ තාප බලාගාර වලට ඕන කරන විදුලිය ඒ අනුව හැමදාම තෙල් සංස්ථාවට දීලා තියෙනවා.
With regard to the president's vision of meeting 70% of the country's power requirement through the renewable energy sources, Lokoge said that the target can be achieved by 2070 and that the necessary steps are being taken at the moment.
Sri Lanka megawatt 50ට වැඩිය බලශක්තිය ආයෝජනය කරන්න කැමති ආයෝජකයන්ගේ කැමති ආයෝජකව නාම ලේඛනයක් අපි හරි ගස්සලා ඒගොල්ලන්ට පුවත්පත් දැන්වීම් දාලා වෙබ්සයිට් එකේ දාලා ඉදිරිපත් වෙලා ඉන්නවා. දැන් මේ ලබන සතියේ ඊළඟ සතියේ වෙනකොට ඒකේ පළවෙනි කණ්ඩායමට අපි ඒ බලපත්‍රය දෙනම ඒවා ආයෝජනය කරන්න.
While procuring fuel for power generation purposes remains the priority at the moment, it is high time Sri Lanka pays more attention to its long-term plans that have been forgotten for a long time. To do that, however, more support is needed and private sector involvement could perhaps be a good option, as some who spoke to us noted. In case you have missed any of the programs we aired tonight, you can always rewatch by catching us on our YouTube page, youtube.com/Derana English. Thank you for taking the time to join us on Investigates. We'll return next week with another matter that affects you and me. Till then, see you soon.